Welcome in, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, Jocks 94.5. It is Wednesday, September 24th. It is 8 a.m. where I am in Hartford, Connecticut, sitting here at the Sheridan Bradley, my home away from home. Not usually my home away from home this early in the season, but was in Bristol last night. Got to visit with some fine folks from the SEC Network, Ben Watson, Gene Chizik. Gosh, I love Coach Chiz. He's just the best. We were nerding out over some football yesterday. Paul Feinbaum and, of course, the great Alyssa Lang. And we did the SEC schedule release. And we're not going to spend some ridiculous amount of time on this because we're deep in the weeds of the 2025 season. But allow me just for a moment, just for 10 minutes tops. Allow me just for a moment to tip my cap. Allow me just for a moment to acknowledge the hard work that has gone into and just how thoughtful and intentional the SEC has been in the last 5 years. Now, people will look, and I think they've been, I don't want to say mischaracterized, but the SEC in a weird way has been by the national media, by those that are trying to paint the SEC in a negative light, starting with the COVID and how the SEC handled COVID and how this didn't go their way. So this side is mad at this side. We know the whole world's become politicized. Let's not try to pretend like that hasn't become the case. We know that. All right. So without going down the rabbit hole of politics and policy, the SEC has kind of been the villain in the court of public opinion outside of the Southeast. And I really could care less. Frankly, if you dislike the Southeast, good. Stay away. We're comfortable. We're golden down here in God's country. And I frankly don't really want Birmingham to grow very much. I'm kind of good with the size it is. I think it's kind of perfect. And I'm sure those of you that are listening down in Baldwin County are like, yep, Fairhope's gotten big enough. Daphne's gotten big enough. I'm sure those of you listening in Huntsville on the Ump, like, yep, you know what? We're good.
Just look at what happened in Atlanta just this century. It's it's taken on I don't want to say mind of its own, but it is almost quadrupled in size. Yeah.
Nashville.
Yeah.
Nashville, Charleston, like all these other cities, Charlotte, all these other cities Dallas, where I'm from. Dallas is unrecognizable. So I'm fine. If you want to think that the SEC is the big bad wolf and that we are crazy down here in the Southeast, that's fine. Please believe that if you will. So as a result, the SEC has kind of been mischaracterized, I think. And I think in a weird way, the SEC has in some ways become the villain because of what happened with Texas and Oklahoma leaving. And prior to that, it was in 2012 when Missouri and Texas A&M left the Big 12, and that was kind of the first round of realignment, and the SEC kind of struck big, frankly, in that first round of realignment because SEC got Mizzou and A&M, and at that time it was all about households because the cable companies were all about how many households are in your footprint. And if you have Texas and you have Missouri, that means you have St. Louis and you have Kansas City and you have all the Texas cities. That's going to be more money in your pocket when you launch your network. Like at that time, that was a pretty big deal. And then this last time around, when Texas and Oklahoma decided to join the SEC, it's like, the SEC delivering the death blow to the Big 12. The SEC indicating that it's no longer collegiate sports. Yeah, as if it's ever been. And, they were kind of portrayed as, you guys started it, and we're going to, and remember the tortious interference and all this lawyer legalese and all. It's like, oh my goodness. So I think for the last few years, the SEC has kind of been painted in a negative light. Meanwhile, nobody seems to draw attention to what's going on in the Big Ten. The fact that last weekend, the Michigan State Spartans, don't make that mistake. But then again, it's 5 minutes into the show and I haven't finished my coffee. So the Michigan State Wolverines are playing a game at 2 a.m. Eastern time. Yeah, you heard that right. 2 a.m. Eastern time and the Spartans are still on the field. And last I checked, East Lansing is in the Eastern time zone. So I'm sure their fans thrilled with that. Meanwhile, that game was being played, I don't know, 1,800 miles away in Los Angeles, California. And then how about this? Just to make things even worse, that one worked out in favor of SC. They got a night game. That's amazing. And now SC, hey, congratulations on your win last week and your nice 4-0 start. You're going to play at 9 a.m. Pacific time in Champaign, Illinois. Have fun. Good luck today, boys. By the way, that's, I don't know, 3/4 of the way across the country, and it's 9 a.m. local time on your body clock. So play well. That's just one of just a handful of examples in which the Big Ten has made it challenging on their fans, on their teams, on all these other things. And I'm not trying to bash the Big Ten. I'm not trying to bash the ACC. I actually like both leagues, probably more than most of our listeners. But the ACC, in an effort to show that strength in numbers, they go, hey, we'll add Cal, we'll add Stanford. And now all of a sudden you got teams like Miami, who, by the way, last year is one of the best teams in the ACC, and they're all of a sudden playing at 10:30 Eastern time at Berkeley.
Ugh, woof.
Woof in many ways. Like, brutal. And I'm sure there's a handful, I haven't looked, but I'm sure there's a handful of other examples in which teams are having to travel across country. You know what the SEC has done? And I know people will suggest otherwise, but I really believe this, like in my heart of hearts. The SEC really genuinely cares about their fans' experience. I think they really do. And it was exemplified last night upon looking at all the future schedules, not just the 3 annual opponents that these SEC schools will play for the next 4 years, and how they prioritized geography, how they prioritized historical rivalries, how they made sure that the farthest team that has to travel from an annual rivalry or an annual matchup perspective is from Norman, Oklahoma to Oxford, Mississippi. That's the farthest you have to go. And while in the process, a couple of games were lost. Florida, LSU, no longer. Alabama, LSU, no longer, at least in the annuals, right? At least some of the geographical aspects of it were preserved. And I know some people are like, well, I want this, I want that. Tennessee had an easy slate. Geography matters. And now, guess what? In your annual games that you're playing every year, the average distance between your 3 annual rivals is 281 miles. I just told you what's going on in the Big Ten. Hey, Sparty, guess what? You're playing at 2 a.m. in Los Angeles, 1,800 miles away. Hey, Trojans, guess what? You're kicking off at 9 a.m. in Champaign, Illinois. And that's just a handful of a few. How about this? Hey, guess what? Ohio State, all your big games from now on are going to be played at noon and or 11 o'clock. How would you feel, fans of the Crimson Tide or the Auburn Tigers or whoever else is listening, if every single one of your big games was played at noon and or 11 o'clock local time? That wouldn't be very fun, would it? But the SEC has really gone above and beyond and tried to protect the interest of their fans. And you know what else? Over the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a real heavy emphasis on trying to create really good home and home non-conference matchups. Like, wanna know why? Because for a little while there, guys, season ticket holders were sitting there saying, like, I don't want our 8 home games to be against Louisiana Monroe, Mercer, fill in the blank, what have you. Like, to me, I can't say I really blame them. Like, I'm spending all this money and I get 2 good home games a year? Like, why? I mean, this is a waste, because our best non-conference game is going to be in a neutral site. We might, in some cases, if you're a fan of the Georgia Bulldogs or if you're a fan of the Texas Longhorns or Oklahoma Sooners or Florida Gators, your rivalry game is a neutral site game in some cases. How uncomfortable is that? It's brutal. So you have very few home games that, quote, matter to you. So what I think the SEC's done a really good job of is because all these athletic directors over the last couple of years have sat there and said, hey, we really need to boost our games. We really need to boost our games against non-conference opponents with home and homes. We almost have to. We need a marquee non-conference opponent. And until we get that, we are going to be in a little bit of a tricky spot. Because if we're trying to get all these schools to play, I don't know, great opponents, we better have some quality non-conference games set up for them. And we're getting all these fans to spend all this money. We better have a reason why they're spending it. So guess what? Florida State's coming to Tuscaloosa next year. Guess what? There's games between Notre Dame and several SEC schools the next few years. We saw Michigan at Oklahoma this year. We saw Ohio State Texas at Ohio State this year. We'll see Ohio State in Austin next year or at some point here in the very near future. So with all those non-conference home games, you know what the SEC could have done? They said, hey, tough stuff. Like, we got to figure things out, and like, we got to do what's best for us. Like, you guys do your non-conference thing. We're going to go ahead and we're going to just schedule the conference schedule the way it goes. No, they said, if you guys are playing your marquee non-conference game on the road, guess what? You're going to have 5 SEC home games. So in total, you're going to have 7 home games a year. And every single team in the SEC has done that. That's pretty dang remarkable. Not to have a single one where everyone's like, no, ugh. Well, the neutral sites, of course, a little tricky to navigate. So yes, there are some examples, for example, with Texas and Oklahoma, where their neutral site game counts as a, quote, half a home game. It's a pay game. They get paid anyways. So financially speaking, every single school will get at least 6.5 home games. Every single one. You know how hard that is to do when you're trying to move around chess pieces and you do 16 by 12, which, by the way, is 192. 192 games had to be scheduled, and the SEC has done so and somehow found a way to make sure that every single school has at least a fair variable and equally challenging across the board and also equal amount of home games for each. So I just wanted to just tip my cap for a moment. This is not like some disparaging comment towards the ACC or the Big 10 or the Big 12 or any other league. It's really not. I have a ton of respect for those leagues, but I just want to acknowledge my appreciation for the SEC and making sure that the fans are protected, the fans' interests are protected, the game time kicks are protected, the geography is protected. If they're going to expand at some point in the future, it's probably going to be contiguous states. Contiguous states, they really care greatly about their footprint. And that's not the case in every other place. And they're not protecting the students in some other places. They're not protecting the teams in some other places. So, and they're not protecting the fans in some other places. So it was really well exemplified last night. And I look forward to these 2026 schedules and beyond. For those that were under a rock, I'll tell you exactly who's playing who, what the what the annual matchups are going to be, and we'll do it next on McElroy and Cubelic the Morning, Jocks 94.5. Welcome back, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, Jocks 94.5. Appreciate all of you being with us today. We have kind of gone into, and we tipped our cap to the SEC in the first segment. If you missed it, go back and check it out. I think as with every other league, they're just completely abandoning the fan experience. I really believe that. Like I'm noticing it more and more. The SEC is really, really trying hard to stay true to what makes this conference elite. And that's the fan support, the passion, and the energy that comes from the people that support these schools. And I really believe the league cares about it. I genuinely do. And talking to them, that's all they talk about. So it's kind of amazing. It's also amazing. I'm a fan of Bill Smith Buick GMC. They're the GMC Dealer of the Year. It's ridiculous the type of deals they have on the lot. GMC Sierra 1500 SLT trim. You can get them for $14,500 off the sticker price. I mean, you're just not finding that deal anywhere else. You can pay just over $52,000 for a GMC Sierra 1500 SLT. I mean, other places you're paying $67,000. It's deals like that keep people coming back. That's why 75% of their business is repeat customers. That's because you have a better experience when you shop with the GMC Dealer of the Year, the national champion of GMC dealers. And they're lucky for us. They're right up the road from us, I-65, exit 310, Highway 31 in Coleman. Or you can shop online, have it delivered right to your driveway at BillSmithBuickGMC.com. All right, Trent Dilfer coming up in about 11 minutes. I do want to buzz through the schedule real quick, and I know we have some tweets and texts coming into the show. We'll start with Alabama. Alabama gets Auburn and Tennessee. Should come as no surprise. By the way, in case anybody's freaking out about, well, I missed this game, I care about this game, we lost this game, what have you, all these annual opponents will be revisited and potentially adjusted every 4 years. So, for example, we'll get to Auburn in a minute. I think Auburn got a tough draw. But it's because Vandy, right now, is notoriously difficult to play against, but that's probably the first time Vandy's ever been notoriously difficult to play against. So they get the two big dogs in Alabama and Georgia, and then they get Vandy, which by winning percentage over the last decade has been the lowest in the SEC. So they try to even it out, and then you now look at Vandy, and it's like, oh gosh, like that's a beast. Well, in 4 years, assuming Vandy goes back to historical norms, then maybe that schedule won't be as much of a beast as it currently appears. So we'll see. I mean, they're going to adjust these every 4 years, and I think that will be helpful as well. Bama gets Auburn, Tennessee, and then Mississippi State, which, by the way, I'm actually quite excited about. As an Alabama fan, as an alumnus of the University of Alabama, like to me, it always, after this last round of realignment, I felt bad for Mississippi State. Like, I really did. Like, Mississippi State's Super Bowl was playing against Alabama. You could tell me the Egg Bowl might mean more. I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just saying their Super Bowl was when we came to town, and they played like it. And, frankly, we lost in 2006 and 2007. Like, it was a hard game. Every single time we played against Mississippi State Bulldogs, it was a beast. And we had more talent than they did. We had more pros, but golly, they played like there was no tomorrow. And I have a ton of respect for that program. So I'm glad to see it back on the schedule. You know what I'm also glad to see back on the schedule too? From an Alabama fan's perspective, from an observer and consumer of Auburn football, and I know Auburn hasn't had this problem the last couple of years, but I'm glad to see Arkansas back on the schedule. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it kind of felt weird to look through an Alabama schedule and not see an Arkansas and to not see an A&M. Because for the last 12 years, we saw A&M every year. And for the last, 33 years, Arkansas was on the docket. So it was kind of strange. A couple other notable rivalries that were put back together. South Carolina finally gets to play against Georgia again. And that was one of the best games in the SEC East every year. And it was always like week 2 or week 3. And every single year that was compelling television. At least from, 2011 through 2016. Now, South Carolina kind of fell off after that. And they've been able to revitalize a bit. But that game has been very, very uniquely competitive for the last 15 years. And we haven't had it for the last couple years, which is unfortunate. So I'm glad to see that one's back on the docket as well. Georgia's perennial or annual matchups, Auburn, Florida, and that South Carolina game. I told you, LSU, I think, had the best argument. LSU might have 9 rivals. You think Alabama has a lot of rivals? I think LSU might have the most in the SEC. Because if you look at it, and whether you acknowledge it as a rival or not, the A&M LSU game has become a rivalry. They've played every year since 2012, and there's been some really memorable moments in it. And if you look historically at that rivalry, it's been pretty significant even beyond those two being in the SEC. They're at Arkansas to battle the boot. You got the Magnolia Bowl against Ole Miss. Bama LSU since 2007 has been as hostile and as intense as any game in college football, if you want to go back the last 18 years, because of Nick Saban's arrival in Tuscaloosa and how often that game meant a trip to the SEC championship game. Then you look at the matchup, the cigar game between Auburn and LSU. I mean, that's like a big rivalry. I think Cole can probably speak to that more. I've called it, but it feels somewhat hostile. You got Florida, by the way. I'm at 6 right now. Florida has been an annual rival for as long as I can remember. So that's 6 different rivals.
Half the league.
That LSU could have.
That is half the league. Yeah.
Literally, half the league. That's 6 different rivals that I could have picked for LSU. And they only get 3, so unfortunately a couple games have to go by the wayside. One being Alabama, one being Auburn, but that's been by the wayside the last couple years. But LSU, I think that's one that will probably adjust every single time we have that 4-year cycle that goes up. So want to get to a couple tweets, want to get to a couple texts. You can call into the show, 800-239-9569. Want to get your opinion on the schedule release and what you think it looks like from top to bottom, because I do think it's been fantastic. If you want to text the show, 205-834-9450. John, Damian, where are we going?
We'll start off on Twitter. As always, you can tweet in at the show at Mac and Cube. Greg Skipworth tweets in, says college football schedules are like classes in school. Some are more rigorous than others. Many teams like students aren't used to rigorous, and it shows on game day. Want to know your thoughts on the SEC as it moves into more rigorous parts of their schedule?
You know what's funny is I think the players are fine with it. The coaches are gonna become okay with it. You know who needs to start to get on board? The fans. Because guess what, guys? You look at these schedules, like in all seriousness, and I'm not celebrating mediocrity by any stretch. What was once 11-1 is now 9-3. Whether you want to acknowledge that or not, the whole, Nick Saban this and Bear Bryant this and Urban Meyer this and, who else? Mac Brown this and, like the days of 11-1, 12-0, I think they are long gone. I really believe that. Long gone. I just don't know how you get through these schedules unscathed, man. Like, I don't look at any schedule right now and think, yep, you know what? That, to me, looks like an undefeated SEC streak. The teams are too close. They're too competitive. It's too dependent on who's healthy, who's not, banged up, who's not. We'll talk about Oklahoma, for example. Like, how many of y'all feel super confident in Oklahoma moving forward now that John Mateer's out a month at least? And we'll talk about that a little later. But to me, guys, like, fans' expectations are going to have to adjust. And I'm not saying you settle. I'm not encouraging that. But I'm just telling you, you need to be a lot more comfortable with 9-3 than you once were. Because 9-3 in 4 years will probably be a really dang good record and likely a playoff team. So, just saying that. Go ahead, Saber.
Yeah, somebody else texted in, and he says, hey, Greg, when does the Big Ten going to require a P4 non-conference game? Since they gave the SEC so much blank about not playing non-league games, it's completely fair to give it back to them. Penn State and Indiana have a joke out-of-conference schedules this year. Same with Indiana and Ohio State last year and Michigan the year before.
The best part is that Signetti was like taking shots, and I love Sig. Like, he was our receiver coach at Bama. Like, we got a great relationship, but he was just absolutely shredding the SEC, like playing, 9 Power 4 teams and stuff like that. And it was just kind of comical. And I like Sig. Like, he ain't worried about it. He ain't caring. Like, that ain't him. But if you look at it, the Big Ten got absolutely had the people's elbow dropped on them. Like, they really did. Like, they just got DDT'd. I mean, because the SEC not only went to 9 conference games, the SEC is a deeper league. Everyone will acknowledge that. Anyone that doesn't is completely naive. The SEC is a significantly deeper league, and everyone in the SEC is 100% committed to trying to be competitive in football. That's not the case in every other league. You can say what you want, not the case. There are some schools in the Big Ten that just flat out aren't committed from a resource standpoint. But guess what? In the SEC, everybody thinks they can win, which is awesome. And they are resourced and funded appropriately. So the SEC now goes to 9 conference games, which, by the way, across the board is just a significantly tougher test than having to play 9 conference games in the Big Ten and or the ACC when they now move to it. And the SEC says, hey, yep, that's great, but we have some ACC rivalry games that we care greatly about that we want to protect, and we want to make sure that our teams continue to schedule high-quality out-of-conference competition. And the Big Ten is like, oh, no, what do we do now? Like, that's what's going on. If you look right now at Penn State, by the way, Penn State right now, they're hosting Oregon this weekend. We'll break that game down a little later and probably quite a bit more tomorrow. Penn State has played New Mexico. I think it's New Mexico. Might be Nevada. Whatever. Who cares? Doesn't matter. FIU and Villanova. Indiana's schedule comparable. Meanwhile, Alabama has played Florida State on the road and Wisconsin. Pretty sporty. Miami, by the way, ACC team, has played USF, a ranked team at the time, Notre Dame, and they just beat Florida. Like, we need to reward teams that are going out and kicking butt and taking names, not these teams that are playing powder puffs. So that's where I'm at with it. And the Big Ten, I think they got some soul searching to do. And the SEC essentially said, here, that's really nice, Big Ten. Hold my beer. That's essentially what happened here over the last couple days. All right. When we come back, Trent Dilfer, talk a little ball next on Mac and Cube. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, 8:33 Eastern, where I am. 7:33 back at home. Can't wait to get home today, man. I miss my kiddos, miss my family. I'm ready to get back into a bit of a groove. It's been chaotic first month of the season, but hey, guess what? We will be cooking with gas here very soon. Also, I want to tell you quickly about our friends at Shannara Flooring. 50,000 square feet of Core-Tec flooring by Shaw in stock. 50,000 square feet. That's amazing. That's a deal. And they're going to give it to you 20%, 40% savings if you go and check them out at fooandyou.com. Look, Foo and his guys have done an amazing job for a long time of making sure that they take good care of you, get you where you need to go, all that wonderful stuff. And Foo and his guys, I always have appreciated the level of expertise and the quality of that Core-Tec by Shaw. That Core-Tec is going to add value to your home or business, and you guys will know it comes with that 20 mil wear layer, built to last, price to move. So go and check them out. Nobody in town has the Core-Tec that Foo has. So remember Shannara Flooring, when you want Core-Tec, call who? Call Foo at Shannara Flooring, 205-518-6423, or you can go online at fooandyou.com. All right. Damien, still some more text coming into the line.
Yeah.
What all we got? Are people proud to be associated with the SEC after last night? Because I think they should be, man. I was pretty pumped looking at some of these games we're going to have over the next few years. And by the way, numbers in last week, SEC top 2 games again.
Let's go.
Dominating by over 1 million viewers. The Michigan-Nebraska game, SEC beating it by 1 million. Pretty impressive. So SEC completely dominating so far the early part of the season when it comes to TV ratings. So another thing, little sidebar. So SEC rolling.
We got you. Hey, you can answer this on the other side because we have Coach Jill for ready for us. And somebody asked, was Florida and South Carolina ever a rivalry in your opinion?
I think it was with Muschamp, but we can talk about it a little bit more. We welcome in. He's the head coach of the UAB Blazers. He joins us every single week, and we always appreciate his time. Coach, what's going on, my friend?
How we doing, Greg? We have some fun today now that Cole's gone.
You know, I've been just talking quarterback schedules, big picture stuff. Like, we're not in the weeds talking about, A-gap, double teams.
Down blocks, duo.
With Q power, slide protection, all that stuff. I watched your tape, Coach. I got to be honest with you. Like, you got to feel, kind of good about some of the things that you were able to do throughout that matchup. Like, you never feel as good to lose. I understand that. But there was a lot of good. I don't know what the message has been to the guys, but I thought it was a spirited effort kind of across the board. What was kind of the message after the game?
Yeah, it was a tough one because you get your tail just kicked. You're down. I felt like I blinked and we were down 28-0. Terrible on defense. Offense couldn't get any drive sustained early on, and then we kind of settled in and got some stops. I still missed a bunch of tackles, missed 13 tackles.
Yeah.
So that was a killer on defense when we did have the right call or the right defense, or you don't get tricked by tempo or you're not out leveraged and we have a player to make a play and we didn't make it. And that's kind of been the story defensively for the years. Opportunities missed, creating a lot of yards and points for the other team. And then offensively, we wanted to see if we could run the football. And in retrospect, I wish I would have come out throwing it a little bit more to loosen them up, to then have a chance to run it. Because once we started throwing it around quick, our line did a pretty good job pass protecting, at least keeping the middle solid so Jalen could climb. He was able to get some cheap completions that loosened him up a little bit. We were able to move the ball. But, there aren't moral victories. I do think, though, there's things you can take away. I thought our resolve was really good. The sideline, which is a thing, as you know, and you can educate the viewers on. When it goes bad and you got a bad sideline, it's a terrible feeling because now you have a culture issue. Our sideline was great. Guys were fired up about the challenge. We talked about loving the battle. The next play mentality, didn't matter what happened on the play before, let's go play the next one as hard and as well as we can. That was kind of the audio of the sideline. So the temperament of the team stayed positive through a lot of adversity. We didn't handle the crowd noise as well as I would like. I think we had 3 procedure penalties offensively. We had a illegal motion, some things that I thought we could have done better. We tried everything known to mankind during the week of preparation to condition them for the crowd noise, but I think we could have done a better job there. And then I think as coaches, myself included, we could have put them in some better situations. So we own that. I think one of the things you have to do with a team that's growing is when they make mistakes, you have to hold them accountable to them, and you have to correct them, and you have to make sure they're one-time mistakes. But as coaches, the same thing. If we don't put them in the best situation, we gotta own that and let them know that we're going to work harder on putting them in better situations as well.
Well, I'm watching the defense though. Like Tennessee does a really good job of creating issues with gaps. And some of the pullers it almost becomes like a lead play sometimes when they pull a tackle and all of a sudden he's leading on the mic. It's like it's a really tough run scheme to account for. And you guys had some free hitters, and I think they have good backs. But it has to be encouraging to know that guys are in the right place. Now, how do you kind of get them over the finish line to make that play in the backfield when they're unblocked there in the hole?
You got to just keep getting better. And I know that's such coach speak, and and I used to hear that as a player. I'm like, what does that mean? But really every little, these kids are 19 to 22 years old, and they can still get a lot better. We're a third through the season. There are, what is that? So 2 bye weeks, that is 10 weeks left. You have 3 really good practices a week. That's 30 practices before a bowl game. You can get a lot better in 2 or 3 practices. So think of a training camp where you're going to get 18 practices and you're really going to develop players and we're going to get a lot better in training camp. Well, you can take that same mentality in season and keep getting better. We have to be better tackling. We have to have better eyes. I think so much of tackling, so much of football is eye work, eye progression, eye discipline. Are you looking at the right things? We got to get better with our eyes on both sides of the ball. I think strength and conditioning is the thing. I think good teams get stronger as the year goes on. When you're stronger, you tackle better. I think there's also just an athletic matchup thing. We got to make sure our best athletes are on the field. Typically there is a floor and a ceiling to tackling, and it usually has to do with your athletic index. So we got to make sure our best athletes are the one tackling the guys at the ball. I think that's on us. So there's a lot of things we can get better at. The encouraging thing, and this is what, our defensive coaches are obviously frustrated. And my encouragement to them has been, you're making good calls. You're putting them in good positions. They have to make plays. Like part of football is when there's a play to be made, you got to make it. I mean, you go back to the first game of the year, ASU puts a ton of points on us. But if you go back and look at it objectively on plays to be made, open hitters, free runners, all that stuff, it's going to be a 14-point game for ASU if we just make the plays. So we got to make plays when those plays are available to be made.
Yeah, visiting with Trent Dilfer, head coach of the UAB Blazers. I agree. I mean, if I'm a coach, I feel pretty good about what we're doing. Just the level of execution now just has to step up. Bye week this week. I'm not sure you can have a bigger contrast from what you guys played against last week to what you're going to play against on the 4th, going from Tennessee to Army. However, there are triple option principles and veer principles in pretty much every offense now, even though it won't necessarily always look the same. So how do you kind of shed what you prepared for last week in preparation of what you have coming up next week? Or is there some carryover?
It is so hard, Greg. I would be going crazy as a defensive coordinator. At least offensively, I'm an offensive guy. You get some similarities. You get quarters.
Sure.
You get mint or 4 down. You get low fence or high fence. You get, your pressure packages carry over. So there's carryover pretty much every single week as an offensive coach. As a defensive coach in this conference, it is bizarre. I mean, it is absolutely bizarre. I mean, then you take your non-conference. Alabama State's offense was very unique. It was a 10-based quarterback who can run, but also vertical passing game. So, okay, there's week 1. Then you go play Navy, which, I call that the wizard offense. That guy's a flipping wizard. He is. It's triple option with spread concepts. That thing's brutal. Akron, more like us. Moorhead is pretty, I would say, college traditional, but he does create a lot of conflict. Then you have Tennessee, which I think is the most unique run-pass balance. They spread you thin, but they also want to maul you in the middle. They don't want to play in a phone booth. They want to spread you thin and then make 6 guys play in a phone booth. And now you go play the phone booth team, the number one phone booth scrum team in America, where they're literally going back to the 40s. And 11 hats, in the run game and just physical and slobber knocker football. And it breaks all your rules. False polars, unbalanced, quarterback ISOs, quarterback counters, misdirection. It's everything that you don't prepare for in the off season. So
sure.
You got to trust your off season work. We installed the defenses for Navy, Army, and Rice, because Rice is triple as well in the off season. So there's a foundation set. I think your personnel changes a little bit. You put different people on the field. You're definitely exposed in the passing game to a certain degree because you're devoting so many assets to the line of scrimmage. But at the end of the day, you got to get off blocks. You got to make plays when you have a chance to make a play. And, you watch Tarleton State play them, and they didn't have some fancy triple scheme. They just destroyed blocks. They just absolutely destroyed Army's blocks. The teams that played well against them destroy their blocks. You get off blocks, you shed, you punch, maul, and then you tackle. So, we got to destroy blocks and tackle. None of the scheme stuff in the world is going to make a difference if we don't destroy blocks and tackle.
Visiting with Trent Dilfer, and always appreciate just everything he could provide us from a perspective standpoint as a player, as a coach, as a guy that's been in the media. Very few are as well versed as Coach Dilfer. Coach, I'll get you out of here with this. A lot of our conversation here this week will be about, quote, coach pressure. And I don't really subscribe to it, frankly. I guess maybe I'm just a player, and to me, it's nameless, faceless opponents. I know big games are coming up. I know big matchups are there. But there's this narrative about Kalen DeBoer and needing to get a win this week against Georgia. There's this narrative about Kirby Smart and the fact that he's 1-6 against Alabama. There's this narrative about James Franklin and his record against top 25 teams, and in particular top 5 teams, and the challenges he's had playing against those teams, and his win-loss record is just not where you want it to be. So coming from your standpoint as a coach, as a player, how would you describe that narrative's impact on a coach's psyche going into big games like this weekend that we see with Penn State, Oregon, Bama, Georgia, what have you?
I'll steal my answer from Tony Dungy. I do think there are, and I think Tony believed this too, there are teams, there are stadiums, there's, matchups that are defining to your organization's growth. We couldn't beat Green Bay forever, right? We just couldn't beat them under Tony. But Tony never made it hey, we're not going to be anything till we beat Green Bay. He's we got to match them. We got to get to their level. We got to prepare like they prepare. We got to draft like they draft. We got to execute like they. So we use them as kind of the lighthouse team. That's the standard. Let's go chase the standard. And when we get there, then we'll have a chance to beat them. And then we did. And then we beat them multiple times. And then I had left at that time to go to Baltimore, but then they beat them regularly, and they got to the championship game. And then Gruden came in, and that team had grown, and then they owned them, and they get to a Super Bowl. So it's a process of chasing the team that is kind of the standard bearer, so to speak. But at the same time, you can't let the game that you're in be bigger than any other game. And Tony would always say, you can't control the narratives. You can't, as soon as you allow all the noise, and I know Nick talks about this all the time, the rat poison, but also just the noise. As soon as the noise gets bigger than the job, you've already lost.
Yeah.
And I think that's the balance, is when the noise becomes bigger than the job. The job has to be bigger than the noise. We have a job to do, right? We have to get these kids prepared. We have to make sure we're doing everything right in our building that we can control to give them the best chance. That's the job. As soon as you start reacting to the noise, I mean, I think it's just a lesson in life too, right? When
Of
we
course.
start reacting to the noise in life instead of dealing with what we can control, you've already lost. You've lost before you've begun. So I think that's the biggest challenge. And the noise is so much louder now. I think that's the problem, is that whatever narratives are out there and are being spewed, the kids can't avoid them. So
Right.
it just clutters their minds all the time. So the challenge as a coach is to bring them back to reality, bring them back to what they can control, bring them back to the task at hand, the moment they're in, instead of past moments or future moments that they can't control.
Yeah, it's just such good perspective, and I appreciate it, Coach. We'll let you go. I wish I had like 10 questions for you on that. Like, it's so well said. But man, I always
I got
appreciate.
more time. It's a bye week.
No. We'll let you go, buddy. We appreciate you so much, and I'm just fascinated by that because it does feel like the coach at times, and I've seen it in other places, like they get tight. Like James Franklin gets tight on the sideline. Like he does, like in a big game, like you could tell he's tight and the players play tight. Like I don't really know how you avoid that. Like, I mean, it just, and I've seen it in other places too. I don't know how to kind of wrap my head around that and how you change that once that's kind of become who you are over the last several years. You know what I mean?
Okay, so I gave this list to my girls. For those of you who don't know, I had 3 Division I volleyball player daughters, all pretty good athletes, all pretty successful. And then I've used it forever. It's a thing called try easy. And I think more coaches could do this. Now, I have not been a very successful coach, so I'm not trying to give Power 4 coaches advice, but this is just in general in competition. You can try easy when your preparation is flawless. I think what you see when people tighten up in big games, big moments, is they don't trust their preparation.
Yeah.
They doubt what went on during the week of preparation. They doubt whether their tackle can block the defensive end because they don't have a chip plan in place. They doubt whether their X can get open versus the stud corner that's going to be a first-round pick because they haven't had stacks and motions to free up the X. They doubt whether the 3 technique can get off blocks because they haven't manipulated the front to give them an advantage. They have doubt going in, so they tighten up, so they try harder in the moment. I think the secret sauce to being competitively free is trying easy. And trying easy means I prepared like a maniac. I turned over every stone. There's nothing I didn't do. I have given my players the best possible opportunity to play their best football. Now we're just going to go let it rip. And we might lose. Like, they might just be better than us. And I got to live with that. But I can live with it if we've done everything in our power to get our players, our building ready for the battle at hand. I felt that last week. I really felt going to the game against Tennessee. I mean, the odds of us winning were next to none, right? But I felt like we had given them every single tool. Now, I was wrong. There was a couple things we could have done better. But, like, during the game, I just wanted to see them be free and have fun and enjoy the moment and try to play their best football and get better through the process. The Super Bowl is the same way. Like, we went into that game, I'm just like, listen, we've done everything. We're as prepared as you could possibly be. Now let's go let it rip and see what happens.
I love it, man. Great stuff. So enjoy visiting with you as always. Enjoy the bye week. Look forward to seeing you and visiting with you a week from now as you prep for Army.
Appreciate you, buddy.
All right. Trent Dilfer, just one of the best. Great friend, great coach, and 2-2 start for the Blazers with conference play coming up starting next week. All right, when we come back, brief breakdown about something that has no business being in the fall. I'll explain it next. Mac and Cube. All right. I know it's a real popular event worldwide. I get that. I've seen Coach O leading USA chants this week from a golf course. But the Ryder Cup has no business being in the fall. I'm sorry, it doesn't. I love, and I know it's a worldwide event, so I get why it is when it is, because in, I don't know, Europe, they don't care about what's going on right now in college football, and they certainly don't care about what's going on in the NFL. But I think if I were in charge of golf, I would not try to put the Ryder Cup up against college football and or the NFL. If it's going to be in the fall, the Ryder Cup should be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Not on Saturday, not on Sunday. Because it's a great event that's getting lost in the weeds.